The heavy iron pin groaned as Xu Xiake pulled the temple gate wide. Cold air rushed into the courtyard, smelling of damp granite and ancient moss. He stepped over the threshold, his weight shifting from the steady stone floor to the uncertain earth of the mountain path. Before him, the world simply ceased to exist. A sea of clouds pressed against the peak, swallowing the horizon and turning the sky into a wall of shifting gray. He gripped his bamboo cane, his knuckles turning white as he felt the sheer drop only inches from his boots. He took a single step forward, the ground beneath his feet giving way to loose shale that rattled into the void below. Silence followed the sound, a long, hollow wait before the rocks hit the bottom. He did not retreat. He tightened his grip on the wood, leaned into the biting wind, and stepped fully into the mist. The path ahead was gone. The climb had begun. The descent into the gorge stripped away the silence of the peaks. The path narrowed until the granite walls pressed inward, leaving only the river as a corridor. By midday, the water had risen to his waist. It was not just cold, it was a physical weight, a numbing force that slowed his pulse. He waded forward, his feet searching for purchase on the slick, submerged stones. Suddenly, the channel contracted. The water accelerated, turning into a white-flecked torrent that hammered against his legs. He braced his bamboo cane against the riverbed, but the wood flexed, nearly snapping under the pressure. His right foot slid off a mossy ledge, and for a heartbeat, the current dragged him toward the deeper channel. He lunged, driving his cane into a crevice, and hauled his body back toward the jagged bank. He pulled himself onto the rock, his legs trembling from the sudden, sharp transition from motion to stillness. The water continued to roar, indifferent to the struggle. He stood, wiped the spray from his face, and moved deeper into the canyon. Nightfall brought the smell of sulfur before the sight of the spring. Xu Xiake stumbled onto the terrace, his breath hitching in ragged, frozen plumes. The cinnabar hot spring waded in a natural basin of carved stone, its surface broken only by rising ribbons of heat. He moved with stiff, aching precision. He discarded his heavy, waterlogged layers, leaving them in a heap on the frost-dusted rock. He stepped into the water. The initial contact was a shock, a prickling sensation that raced across his skin, as the warmth drove out the lingering bite of the river current. He sank until only his shoulders remained above the surface. He leaned his head back against the stone rim and closed his eyes. The heat began to sink deep into his muscles, loosening the knots of tension and fatigue that had anchored themselves to his bones. The steam rose in thick, swirling columns, catching the faint moonlight and vanishing into the freezing canopy above. For the first time in days, the constant, driving pressure of the mountain faded. He sat in total silence, listening to the rhythmic pulse of the spring, letting the warmth restore the strength he would need for the peaks that lay ahead. Day 4 arrived as a wall of white. The trail disappeared under a heavy, suffocating blanket of snow, forcing Xu to retreat to a small stone shelter. He sat by a window for hours, listening to the rhythmic, maddening drip of melting ice against the rock. Every drop felt like a hammer blow against his resolve. When he finally moved, he moved with cold, calculated purpose. He stepped out and drove his bamboo cane into the frozen mud, hacking at the slope to carve a single notch. His boots slid on the slick incline, sending a spray of ice into the abyss below. He slammed the staff into the frozen earth, using it to anchor his weight while he swung his body upward. The wind screamed through the crags, pulling at his balance with every motion. He carved another notch, then another, his breath coming in sharp, ragged gasps that vanished instantly into the gale. His hands grew numb, the wood biting into his palms, but he did not stop. Each step was a battle against gravity and the shifting, treacherous surface. He pulled himself over a jagged outcrop, his fingers finding purchase on the frozen grit, and finally stood on a narrow, windswept ledge, the path ahead slowly coming back into view. The incline leveled off as Xu reached the Pingtian Ridge, but the respite was brief. Around him, twisted pines erupted from the granite, their roots coiled into the rock like thick, calcified snakes. He leaned against a trunk to steady his pulse. The sun began its final descent, bleeding a harsh, orange light across the horizon. Ahead, the landscape underwent a violent transformation. The path folded into itself, rising vertically toward the sky. The Tiandu and Lotus peaks emerged from the gathering gloom like stone giants, their massive forms blocking the remaining light. The air grew thinner, colder, and heavy with the smell of wet granite. Xu checked his footing on the narrowing ledge. The world around him had narrowed to a thin, precarious ribbon of stone. He looked up at the jagged silhouettes of the summits, their jagged edges cutting into the bruised clouds. The silence here was absolute, a crushing weight that pressed against his chest. He tightened his grip on his bamboo cane and took a step toward the base of the final climb. The shadows stretched long and thin, swallowing the trail behind him. There was no turning back now. The mountains had ceased to be a path and had become a wall. Xu stepped onto the Jian cliff, and the world vanished. The path ahead narrowed until it was nothing more than a shelf of slick, weather-worn stone. Below his left boot, a section of the granite edge fractured, clattering silently into the haze until even the sound was swallowed by the emptiness. He threw his weight against the sheer rock face, his chest pressing into the cold, unyielding wall. His right hand shot out, scrambling for purchase, until his fingers hooked around a single, gnarled pine branch protruding from a crevice. It was thin, twisted, and vibrating in the wind. He hung there, his boots dangling over a bottomless void that seemed to pull at his very marrow. Every muscle in his arm locked, trembling under the strain. He dared not look down, but the absence of ground beneath him was a physical sensation, a hollow ache in his gut. The branch groaned, a low, splintering sound that echoed through the mist. Xu held his breath, his knuckles turning raw against the rough bark. He was a speck of humanity suspended by a thread of wood over the mouth of the abyss. One tremor, one shift of the wind, and he would be gone. The sky tore open, and the world became a deluge. Rain hammered the granite, turning the narrow track into a cascading waterfall that threatened to sweep him into the dark. Xu squinted through the downpour, spotting the 100-step cloud ladder ahead. The stone stairs leaned precariously outward, hanging like a broken spine over the abyss. He lunged for the first stone, his fingers locking into a wet crevice. The water slicked his grip, but he pulled. He hauled his body up, step by agonizing step, his toes nearly pressing against his chin with every vertical heave. His muscles screamed under the strain, burning with the effort of fighting both the gravity of the mountain and the weight of the water. Another step, he slipped, his boots skidding on the mossy edge, but he slammed his other knee into the stone and caught his balance. He did not look back, he focused only on the next jagged notch. With one final, lung-bursting heave, he hauled his frame over the final lip. He stood on the crest of the Lotus Peak, rain-drenched and gasping, as the summit wind whipped around him. He had fought the stone giants and won. Xu settled onto a flat slab of granite, his legs shaking from the final ascent. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the worn, travel-stained diary. His hand, caked in grit and trembling from fatigue, gripped the brush. He dipped it into the inkwell, the dark fluid pooling steadily despite the howling wind. He wrote, his strokes firm, capturing the scale of the peaks and the depth of the valleys he had conquered. The ink dried quickly in the thin, freezing air. He closed the book, the sound of the cover snapping shut marking the end of the journey. The camera pulls back, the summit shrinking until it is swallowed by the vast, rolling sea of clouds. The scene fades, revealing the same granite needles, the same twisted pines, and the same mist that he faced centuries ago. They remain unchanged. The wind still cuts through the same stone channels, and the clouds still drift through the valleys, indifferent to the passage of time. What he recorded remains fixed in the ink, while the mountain itself continues to exist, solid and eternal, exactly as he saw it that day.